Omush, welcome back to the channel, and this is a channel where we give you reviews, playthroughs, not so much unboxings these days, but we do them, and we generally like to talk a load of bollocks about tabletop gaming in general. And in this video we're going to be talking about a hidden movement game. We're going to be talking about Specter Ops, the Broken Covenant version, not the original version, but they're roughly the same anyway, so don't get your knickers in a twist. And in this game, one of you will be taking control of the agent, who will be trying to run away from the hunters. They'll be trying to activate certain objectives and then escape from the nasty little hunters before the time runs out, in order to win a game of Specter Ops. So in this video, we're going to be giving you a very brief overview of rules, telling you what we do like, what we don't like. Then we'll come back and we'll tell you whether or not Specter Ops Broken Covenant is still worth playing. For fuck's sake. That's only 4 years old, so 4 years after this one was first released, a couple of years after the original was first released. So remember, if you know it, then please consider subscribing to this channel. Leave a comment down below. See you after this. So Specter Ops is a 1 versus all game. One of you is going to be playing the agent and the rest of you are going to be playing the hunters. The agent's objective is to activate 3 of the 4 objectives and then escape before the 40th round. The hunter's basic objective is to inflict 4 damage onto the agent and kill them before they escape. Right, so first thing you're going to do in this game is you're going to allocate the objectives to their locations. You're going to roll a 6-sided die and then you'll place the objective onto the space that corresponds with the number you rolled. You do this 4 times and you'll end up with 4 objectives on the south side of the board, right? So next thing you're going to do, you're going to choose the character you're going to play. This version of the game comes with some reprints of the original characters in the first variation of Specter Ops, but basically all you're missing is a miniature, so you can just basically use them and just pretend that you're using the miniatures from the first game if you like. I know it's cheating, I don't care. So some of the hunters that you might be able to use, you might choose the gun. They have the sharpshooting ability, which allows you to roll 2 dice when attacking with the gun. They've also got the sniper shot. After moving the gun, if the agent is not visible, you choose a direction, and until your next turn, the gun only has vision in that direction, and you roll 2 dice for the quick draw instead of 1. You might be able to use the heat, and they have the added ability of thermal vision, and this says if the heat moves 2 or fewer spaces, structures don't obstruct his vision until the end of his turn. There's also the Watcher, and they've got the ability of being able to chuck down cameras onto the board and they can see in a straight line in one direction only, and they've also got full speed, and it says when the Watcher moves only on the road, they may move up to 5 spaces. So each of these characters has a unique special ability that will aid them in their hunt for the agent. So the agent also gets a choice of certain characters. Their abilities generally aren't as strong as the hunters, but that's tough shit. You're just going to have to live with that, ain't you? So you might end up with Fox, and she has the dash ability, and the Fox may move up to 5 spaces on her turn, but when you use a dash, the Fox becomes fatigued. Right, you might be able to use the Mantis, and the Mantis has the ability of the Blade Strike, and it says when you place a last scene marker adjacent to a hunter, roll a die on a roll of 3. Mantis stuns that hunter. Mantis may only stun 1 hunter each turn in this way, right? So there's not as many to choose from for the agent, and the special abilities aren't as varied or as powerful if you are running away from those blasted hunters, right? So to counter this, the agent is going to have a certain number of equipment cards that they can use on their turn before or after moving. They might be able to get the remote trigger. Don't reveal this card. When completing an objective, you may reveal the objective has been completed on your following turn instead of this turn. Or you might have the smoke grenade, and this says reveal this card, place a smoke grenade token up to 4 spaces away from your agent's location. Until the end of your next turn, all spaces within 1 space of that token block line of sight, but don't block movement, right? That is long-winded. I might just have to swallow a smoke grenade next time I read that, right? Or you might have the smoke dagger, and this says reveal this card, choose a hunter within 4 spaces. That hunter loses vision until the end of its turn. So this is a sort of a nice way to balance the game. These are expendable special abilities, whereas the hunters are going to have permanent special abilities. So it's a nice little balance, and it works quite well. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to place the agent on one of the entry spaces at the top of the board, and all of the hunters are going to try and cram themselves into one of the vehicles. You've got the interceptor. This has got a movement value of 12. It's also got the optic alarm, and it says whenever there are no hunters in a vehicle, this optic alarm is automatically activated. And if the agent moves into or through the line side of the vehicle, then they must reveal where they are, right? And it's also got a puppet. It says if this puppet is in play, the puppet has vision as though he's in the vehicle. That sounds really scary, doesn't it? It almost sounds like you got your hand up Sooty's ass. And the other vehicle that you got is the Tracer. It's got a lesser movement of 10, right? But it's also got a motion sensor, and it says if the hunter starts his turn in this vehicle, instead of moving the vehicle, the hunter may use its motion sensor. When using the motion sensor, if the agent moved 3 or more spaces in the last turn, the agent keeps waffling on about stuff that makes no sense, right? So if you're playing as the agent, you've got the option of moving your agent, right? So the agent has the option of moving up to 4 spaces, and you won't actually move anything on the main board as such. You'll use your little pad, as is the norm in these types of games, and you'll mark your movement on that pad. It does get a little bit tricky maybe when opposition puts their cameras down and stuff, but I found if you just draw a line in pencil where the cameras are, like the line of sight, and you could just rub it out later, that solves that issue, right? So by moving, you might be seen by a hunter. If you end your move on a space that is within line of sight of a hunter, which is basically a straight line from the hunter's figure to where you have ended your movement on the map, then you have been spotted and you must place the last seen marker in that space, right? You've also got to stick your little plastic mini on top of that space for some bizarre reason. And you've also got the option of playing some equipment cards that we mentioned earlier, either before or after your movement. There's also things on the board called supply caches, and there's 6 on the board. These give you a one-shot opportunity to draw a card from the equipment deck and add it to your hand. And if you reach a space that is adjacent to one of the mission objectives, you'll flip it over and then you'll mark it off on your board, right? But this will tell the hunters exactly where you are located. So if you manage to do 3 out of 4 of the objectives, then you need to escape through one of the 3 exit points, and you've got to make sure that you also have 4 hit points and 4 limbs, well, 2 limbs at least, to walk on and escape, right? So there's also a possibility that you might become fatigued in the game, and if you do, then you'll stick a fatigue token on your board, and that means that that player's special ability can no longer be used until they move a minimum of 2 spaces, and then you can take it off and reuse the special ability again, right? So if you're playing as the hunters, your objective is to try and kill the agent before they complete the objectives and escape, right? Once again, you can move up to 4 spaces. You can get in your vehicle, which will take up your whole action because you'll have to move. You can get out of the vehicle if you're still in the vehicle, of course, because you can't get out of a vehicle if you're not in it, right? That will take up another movement, or you can move in the vehicle, in which case you'll just move the vehicle marker that many spaces, right? At the end of your turn, the agent has to say clear, and if they don't, then obviously they're in line of sight and they're Dumbo. So if they are within line of sight, you've got the option to attack them, right? You'll roll a 6-sided die and you'll count the number of spaces away from the agent that you are. A 1 is an automatic miss, a 6 is an automatic hit. If the roll is equal to or greater than the number of spaces, then you will hit the agent and you'll do them 1 hit points worth of damage. There's no limit to the line of sight with respect to the hunters. You can see all the way down the board as long as there's nothing blocking your vision like buildings or stuff like that. And again, you could be stunned, which is the same sort of thing as being fatigued. I don't know why they call it something different, don't know. Just because I suppose they felt they had to, didn't they? If you do 4 points worth of damage and you kill the agent, then you will win the game of Specter Ops. There's also rules for 4 and 5 players, which introduce a traitor mechanism. Basically, you're going to be dealt a few cards at the beginning of the game. It's going to tell you whether you're the traitor or not, and you're just going to try and assist the agent to try and escape without revealing yourself, right? And if you do reveal yourself, or you do get revealed, people figure out who you are, then basically you become a second agent and you get to complete the same objectives as the first agent, right? So that's the basic rules for Specter Ops. So if you complete your objective of either side, then you will be the winner of Specter Ops. So what do we like about Specter Ops Broken Covenant, and essentially the first version of Specter Ops as well, because they're quite similar? So the first thing that we like about Specter Ops is it takes the very simple concept of Scotland Yard, which is basically just the same sort of thing. You're running around a city, trying not to get caught by the old bill, and it adds equipment cards, it adds special abilities, and it adds vehicles that actually do have a proper use rather than just monging about in a load of taxis. So the way that it embellishes a tried and tested formula is quite wonderful in itself. Second thing that we like, as I hold my fingers at, is that the game feels quite well balanced between the agents and the hunter. The agents have the permanent special abilities that they can call upon whenever they want to, but the hunters have those temporary special abilities that come and go, and you're not going to be able to pick and choose which abilities you want unless you're talking about the ones at the beginning of the game. So that does balance the fact that the hunters are more powerful in terms of special abilities and the agents are a bit weaker there, but they've got the added bonus of being hidden. So the game is quite finely and well balanced. So the third thing that we like about Specter Ops is there's a good selection of characters in it, especially if you mix it with the original version. We ain't got the original version, but I'm now tempted to maybe pick that up on the cheap and throw everything into one box. One that opens a little bit better than this one. This one does suffer not from box farts, but just not being able to open the bloody thing. So yeah, the fact that you've got so many different options, and with regards to the characters and all those special abilities that can be interchanged and explored and see how they work together, it does produce different ways of playing a game, and it does give you a lot of replayability. So the final thing that we like about Specter Ops is the fact that this game is limited to 40 rounds. If it went on any further than that, I probably would start melting like the Wicked Witch of the West. So it doesn't outstay its welcome, and we're very thankful for that, because if it did go on any longer, I'd probably try and cut my own throat. So what don't we like about Specter Ops? So the first thing we don't like about Specter Ops is the combat system. It's bollocks. It's basically just rolling a 6-sided die and hoping you get a bloody number. There's no strategic element. The only strategy you got is how close to the agent can you get, right? So it's literally just complete luck fest. There are other games that do have this sort of thing. I mean, my favourite game of all time, Cyclades. The combat is basically just down to a die roll, but I can forgive Cyclades because it's wrapped up in loads of other stuff. This is your main priority when you are the hunter. You've got to try and kill the agent by rolling a 6-sided die, and if you don't get close enough for whatever reason, then you might be screwed, and that's nothing to do with you. Second thing that we don't like about Specter Ops is something that all these sort of games suffer from, is the fact that when you are looking at your mini-map, it's very difficult to picture what's going on the mini-map on the main board. So you're going to be looking at the main board and you might give away your position. So the players will then have added information that you might not necessarily want to give away. We try every time to maybe look at where we are and then look away, but the players will always know when you are looking at the main board where the hell you are, and that is a pain in the bum. So the next thing, this is the final thing. Is it the final thing? Oh, hang on. No, the next thing that we don't like about Specter Ops is something, again, that a lot of these games suffer from, right? We played Fury Dracula a little while ago, and me being Dracula and me being a complete and utter dickhead screwed up the card system, and I forgot where I was and things got muddled up, and it was impossible to unpick it. And this game suffers from the same thing. Okay, I do hold my hand up. I yield to the fact that I am an idiot. It's always down to the player whether or not they are focused enough and intelligent enough to not make mistakes, right? But me having a brain like that of a tsetse fly, I always screw these sort of things up. I always have trouble thinking about what's going on in here and translating it down to there. So these sorts of games are very difficult to unpick if you make a cock up. So the final thing, and I promise this is definitely the final thing, is that this game feels a little bit half-baked. It's almost like they only threw half a game in here. And I'd imagine if you got the other version of Specter Ops, you threw this in, the game would feel a little bit more complete. But when I cracked this open, I did feel like there wasn't enough content in here. I was confused at the time. I was thinking, well, there's no miniatures for these cards. There's nothing in the rulebook that tells me these cards are just basically reprints or tweaked versions of characters that you got in the original game, right? So that means basically if you want to use these at the end of the day without taking shortcuts, you're going to have to get the original version of the game, right? And it does feel a little bit like you've been bumped off a little bit, you know what I mean? So to summarise, is Specter Ops Broken Covenant, or the original edition that's quite similar to this one, worth your time and bother today and in the future? So we're going to say maybe, maybe not. It does occupy a space, very basic games like Scotland Yard and the more complex games like Fury of Dracula. This one slots right into the middle of that. I'd only recommend this game if you have Fury Dracula and you're looking for something that's a little bit more taxing on your noodle, or if you've got Scotland Yard and you've enjoyed that and you're looking for something that's a little bit more complex but isn't going to throw you in at the deep end with your legs and hands tied together and with a sponge stuck in your gob. It does suffer from being a little bit half-baked, and again, like all of these games, you're not going to get away from this, but if you do make a mistake, it's very difficult to unpick it. But it's still a solid hidden movement game with a really quite wonderful theme. Components look good, the miniatures are good. But like we said, if you're looking for a hidden movement game that isn't too demanding, then Specter Ops might be the one for you. So there you go, that's Specter Ops. Remember, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel. Leave a comment down below. We'll see you next Tuesday.